So right now, I just want you to think, I want to ask yourself some questions. You want this year to be a great year? Do you believe the small things matter? Do you believe it matters the way you speak to people, the way you act? Do you believe it matters the practices and the habits that you have in your life right now? Do you believe those things matter? If you believe they matter, then here's what I'm telling you. They're going to define you. They're going to define your shining moments. And beyond that, when the hard times and the difficult times come, and they will, then your belief in those things is what's going to get you through story. But if you're not, here's a quick summary of the story. So the children of Israel were taken into captivity by the Assyrian army. And when the Assyrians came in, they chose the most elite group of young people to take them captive and take them over to Babylon. And they were going to take them captive, and they were going to basically brainwash these young people into being elite members of Babylonian society and being wise people for the Babylonians. So, history tells us that they took the king's sons and all of the upper government leaders. They took all of their sons, and they took their children from them, and they took some of the young people that would be prepared to lead the country. They took them all. And they led them captive, and they took them to Babylon. Well, there were a lot of kids taken, but the Bible tells us in Daniel about Daniel, who was written by. Daniel tells us his story in this book, and it's about Daniel. And then he had three friends. All right, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. All right, and so these are the three what we call the three Hebrew children. They are three guys that were friends of Daniel. So they're all in Babylon now, and they have, when they first got there, they're basically indoctrinated into the ways of the Babylonians. So they're brought into the king's jurisdiction. They're fed very good food. They are taken care of by the king's drink, and they're taken care of by his stewards, and they are really kind of totally indoctrinated into the Babylonian way of life. But Daniel and these guys, they were like, look, a lot of these things violate our way. They violate the code of living that we have as Jewish people. And so therefore we would like to not eat of that meat, and we would like to not drink of that particular drink. And let us just have vegetables, and let us have water, and see if at the end of the time we don't prove out to be just as good, if not better, than the other guys that are eating all of the things that you're giving. And so they talked this king's steward into doing it. It was a pretty amazing story. And the king's steward said, all right, I'll give it a shot, but not long, because I don't want to lose my head or my job. And so he agreed to feed them vegetables and water, and that's exactly what they did. And at the end of the time, he said, you know what, you guys look better, you look healthier than these other guys, so I'll let you continue to do that. And so the first few chapters of Daniel are all about Daniel and these guys as they acclimate to the Babylonian captivity and their time away from all their friends and family back home, as they're over here in this foreign country, basically prisoners, but prisoners with benefits, okay? Because they're being groomed and they're trying to brainwash them into being the future brain trust for the Babylonians. So the story tells in Daniel chapter 3 that these three guys, we don't know where Daniel's at in the story, but the three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are in the middle of this story in chapter 3, and the king issues a decree. Now, the decree was Nebuchadnezzar, he builds this statue, all right? So he's the king. He builds a statue, and what he does is he tells everybody that when you hear the music playing, I need everybody to bow down to my statue. All right, and we're just going to have this big celebration, and you guys are all going to worship me for a few minutes. And so Nebuchadnezzar has this great idea. And so they build the statue, and they put the statue out here, and all the music plays, and everything happens, and everybody's supposed to bow at this moment. Well, the three Hebrew children, all right, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they couldn't bow because they could not worship this king, because they worshiped the one true God. And they were like, we cannot bow. So they didn't bow. Well, it didn't take long for the people who really didn't like them very much at all, because there were a lot of Babylonian young men who were like, look, what is these Jewish guys? I mean, why are they here? We don't need them. And they were very jealous of these Jewish leaders and these Jewish people. And so coming into their territory and taking over their special positions. And so they were like, you know what, we're gonna tell on them. So they went and they told, and they're like, hey, look, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't bow. We were there. We saw it. And they didn't bow. And so the king was like, well, I'm sure it was a mistake. I know these guys. They're great. They're my guys. I mean, you know, we're training these guys. They're some of the best of the best. All I need to do is just explain it to them. So he calls them in. He says, look, guys, maybe you guys didn't understand the whole story. Here's the deal. Statue, you guys saw that, right? Okay, great. Music plays. Heard that, right? Good. All right. When that music plays, I want you to bow down to that statue, okay? And everything's going to be cool, okay? And so the next time, that's what you need to do. Are we good? You know, and I'm sure he didn't say it that way, because Nebuchadnezzar had quite the reputation for being pretty brutal. But even in the chapter 3, we get this story that he's being very kind to these guys. He's being very, very, it was just a big misunderstanding kind of deal. And so he says, are we good? And they're like, no, sir. We need you to understand that we can't bow to that statue. And Daniel chapter 3 tells us that King Nebuchadnezzar was infuriated. He was so angry that these guys would refuse his direct order. So he told the guys, great, I want you to go, and I want you to go to the furnace, and I want you to heat it 7 times hotter than we normally heat it. Go heat that thing, crank it up. And we're going to throw these guys in the furnace. And so, I mean, I don't know, but the guys went down and started heating up that furnace hotter than it had ever been before. In fact, the Bible tells us it was so hot. The men who were stoking it up, some of those men actually died, okay, just trying to follow the command. So the young men were led down and they were going to be thrown in. And again, Nebuchadnezzar's like, look, guys, you know, I'm going to throw you in this thing. And this is what how these men responded to Nebuchadnezzar. They said this. It is in verses 17 and 18 of chapter 3. There's 2 statements they make. And I won't quote them exactly, but I want you to get these 2 statements. And it's kind of what I want to leave you with today. First statement was this. We will do it right even if we die. We're going to do the right thing even if it costs us our lives. It's the first thing they said. And the second thing is, God doesn't owe us a miracle, because they ended that statement with this, and if we die, we die. We're going to do the right thing, even if we die. And if God chooses to deliver us, great. And if he doesn't, it's okay too. I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm going, oh my word, are you kidding? This was these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This was their shining moment. It really was. It's the one that's written about in Daniel chapter 3. It's the most we know about these guys in all of the whole entire Bible. Okay? So it is definitely their highlight story. Okay, in the Bible. But I can tell you that highlight story, that moment when they look at the king Nebuchadnezzar and say, we're not going to bow. And if we perish, if you kill us, we'll die in there. And that's just the way it's going to be. And if God chooses to deliver us, he does. And if he doesn't, that's up to him. But we're going to do the right thing even if it costs us. You don't say that in that moment without having a belief system that every day, day after day after day after day, they had just done the right thing over and over and over and over again. And that gave them the confidence to do the right thing when the spotlight was on their lives. You see, they did the right thing early on when it came to the food and when it came to what they drank and what they did and how they conducted their lives. They had been making right decisions because here's what they knew. What we believe matters. And our belief is going to guide us in this decision making that we make all day long. We believe that what we do matters. We believe the choices we make matter. We believe it matters for us and it matters to other people that are watching us. And so therefore in everyday little decisions, these guys had been just doing it right. So when it got down to this big moment, they did it right again. And it looks so easy on the highlight reel, but it's not easy. There's no way that's an easy call to make. You only make that decision in the highlight reel because you've made it 1,000 times before you ever got there. And in their story, which is such a great one, it's like the Jordan story when the ball goes through, right? I mean, such a cool story because they actually do throw the 3 guys into the furnace. Okay, this fiery furnace. It's so hot, the men that throw them in end up dying. It's that hot. And they get thrown in, and the Bible tells us that the king looks in, and he says, hey, didn't we throw 3 guys in there? And they're like, yeah. And he says, I see 4. And the 4th guy, he looks like the Son of God. And Nebuchadnezzar is so moved at that moment, he's like, get him out of there. Pull him out. Pull him out. And the Bible says these guys came out of this fiery furnace, and not one hair on their head was singed. Their clothes did not even smell like smoke. Nothing about them was harmed. And it's just this incredible story of God showing up in these guys' lives and saying, you know what, guys? Because you said you're going to do right, even if I don't rescue you, even if I don't save you, you're going to do what's right, and you let them throw yourself in there, not knowing what would happen. I just want you to know that, man, I'm showing up, and I'm showing up big time, and I'm going to do a miracle. And it's not just a miracle that'll impact your life. It's a miracle that's going to impact everybody's life that's in this room right now who's looking at this furnace. It's impacting the king, the most powerful king in the whole planet at the time. It's impacting his life as he's counting 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. I thought we threw 3 in there. What happened? It's a powerful story, and if you've never read it, you should get a Bible and go to Daniel 3. If you don't have a Bible, just get a Bible app, and check out Daniel chapter 3. It's this incredible story of these guys and their lives and how God showed up. And I want to tell you, if that story doesn't teach us, it should teach us a lot of things. And it just teaches us that these defining moments matter, and the fact that we believe what we believe. And why we believe things are important. When it counts, they really matter. But I'm just going to tell you, if you've taken shortcuts, if you have cheated your way through, if you have defied your conscience, if you have just said, you know what, we're far away from home, our parents aren't here, nobody's watching, why does it matter? God has left us, right? I mean, we're here. Let's just do whatever we want to do. Who cares? Then when you get to a moment like that, you bow. That's easy. You just bow. And you're like, look, we didn't have a choice but bow. I mean, we would have died if we hadn't bowed. I mean, we bowed, but, we didn't mean it. I mean, we were down there going, we don't mean it. We don't really mean it, but we're going to bow anyway. Right? And it's the same way with us. Every day we make decisions to bow or not to bow. Every day we make decisions about how we're going to live our lives and the words we're going to say and the shortcuts we're going to take, and if we're going to cheat or not cheat, if we're going to be honest or not honest, if we're going to lie or tell the truth, if we're going to be kind or be mean, if we're going to blow up in anger or we're not, if we're going to deal with things that we should have dealt with, are we just going to let them keep going and let them keep getting bad? These are all these little defining moments in our lives every single day. And I promise you, if you want a great 2021, you have to believe these moments matter. You really do. You have to believe they matter. And so you have to show up when nobody's looking and do the right thing. You have to tell the truth when you don't think anybody notices whether you tell a lie or tell the truth. You have to be on. You don't have to cheat your way through. If you never get caught, it doesn't matter. What matters is, did I do the right thing? And as I build a life based on doing right things over and over and over again, what happens? I'll tell you what happens. You got these shining moments that show up in your highlight reel for 2021. But when you stand there in those moments, here's what you're going to know. And it's what Jordan knew the day he took the shots. And it's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew the day they walked out of the furnace. This moment was bigger than just this moment. This moment was made up of 1,000 moments that you guys never saw. And you will also know that same feeling, and you'll know that same wisdom in your own heart, in your own life, as you experience these things. And I honestly do believe that we'll experience some of the greatest miracles, some of the greatest things that God is just going to step into our lives and do. Why? Because we're just faithful. Because every single day we get up, we show up, and we do the right thing. So I want to encourage you. 2021, you want your life to matter? Man, I want mine to matter. Then we can learn a lot from the 3 Hebrew children, and even from Michael Jordan today. We can learn a whole lot about why little things absolutely matter.